Hi friends, it's Caitlin and welcome back to the Floating Rock podcast. I hope you're having the most incredible day ever. I did something today that made me very happy. Two things actually before I get into the pod. Number one, I bought pink star pimple patches. Very, very fun. It's kind of making my day. It's like the cutest thing in the world. Secondly, I also do you ever think about old people when they see us wearing these weird little things on our face and they're like, what are the kids doing these days? They're wearing stickers. Secondly, I brought my mushroom coffee, a shot of it pretty much, to the coffee shop, and I mixed it with a chai to make my own dirty chai that won't put me on the floor. It was so good. But anyway, on to the actual meat of the pod. I said I hope you're having the most incredible day ever, and I think that there is incredibleness in every day, even if your day is not quote-unquote perfect or the best ever, the most positive, awesome, whatever. I'm aware of that because I had a somewhat emotionally turbulent day today. And I still learned something out of it. And I'm like, you know what? I still think that is an incredible day if you learned something. And I honestly was going to do a different topic going into today. My mom and I had talked about something. We're like, wait, okay, kind of cute, kind of fun. We love it. But one of my favorite things about this podcast is, like I've said before to you guys, it's like this running kind of diary of what I am learning every single day. And I think that's really cool. And I think it's really a really cool thing about art and having these kind of projects in your life is you aren't following a strict program. And it's I don't have to make the episode about mental health this today because that's what's on my 5-year plan for the pod. It's no, it's this living, breathing, moving, ever-changing kind of thing of what I learn in my life and what I can share with you guys and hopefully invoke everyone else to learn maybe similar lessons with me, or I don't know, any sort of takeaway that you ever get from the pod. But I guess I was feeling that a lot today because I'd kind of planned out an entire episode and then learned something different today that was more on my heart, if you will, to share with you guys. And so, yeah, I just thought it was more relevant, and I think that we'd all take a little bit more from this than we would the other episode, especially today. As I mentioned too in a recent episode, I've been learning a lot about emotions recently because, as I mentioned in another episode, I recently found out that I'm a lot more detached from them than I thought I was, which is a crazy thing to say on the internet because you don't know who's listening. But the only way I'm gonna keep being real with you guys is if I keep being real with you guys. So that's me being real. Anyway, though. So as I told you, I was having a somewhat emotionally turbulent day, and it was a lot. And I'd heard this quote literally the day before that allegedly emotions last for 90 seconds, and everything you feel from then on is a choice. And I was like, okay, very interesting, because I heard that and I kind of took that into today of okay, how I feel is a choice. And I kept trying to choose differently, and I kept coming back to the emotion I was feeling, and I'm like, okay, I would have moments of being able to get out of it and get into something else. So with this quote in mind, I was kind of thinking okay, I have the choice. I felt my 90 seconds, and now from here on out, I have my choice of if I'm going to feel this or not. And yes, I had some good strides there. I would listen to a certain song and be like, oh, see, I don't feel it anymore. Or I would kind of get into a certain project thing I was working on today. Oh, I don't feel it anymore. I did it. Yay. But I kind of kept coming back to it. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And I talked to my mom a little bit about this whole topic too. And she was like, okay, tread lightly. You can't just tell people you choose how you feel. And I'm like, after today, I definitely learned that is you don't choose. But I'll get to my point a little bit later about how you kind of do. Anyway, so I did a little bit more research about how long we feel emotions for and how much of it is choice. And so I found this Psychology Today article. So I don't know how credible all this is, but to me it resonated and made sense. So I don't know if all the science backs it, but I was like, you know what? This kind of checks out. Let me read you the quote that really jumped out at me. And I was like, oh my God. Rumination is the central determinant of why some emotions last longer than others. Emotions associated with high levels of rumination will last the longest. And I was like, oh my God. Because how much of today was I just feeling, or how much of it was I actually ruminating and thinking, rethinking things? And I was like, that is actually the most interesting thing in the world, because people always say joy is fleeting, happiness is fleeting, but how come these more negative things always stay with us? And I realized that it's because we don't ruminate in joy. We don't ruminate in happiness. You have that moment and you're present and it's awesome. And then you kind of move on and you maybe look for the next positive moment, or you run into whatever happens next in your life. But the things with anxiety and guilt and all these things, you ruminate on them. You keep rethinking them. The word that they used also is re-triggering. And I was like, wait, oh my God. Some of the fun fact little numbers that they kind of gave, once again, I don't know exactly how credible this is. It was also based they wrote this article based on a study that was done in 2014 called Motivation and Emotion by these two people who I cannot pronounce their names. They look a little bit Russian, maybe. But yeah, so I'm going to link also the study and the article if you want to look more into it. I can't access the study itself because I'm not a part of an institution anymore. Yay, graduation. So yeah, before I get into this whole rumination retriggering thing, I just thought I'd share with you guys some of the things that they talked about a little bit. Some of these shorter lasting emotions include disgust, shame, humiliation, and compassion, which like usually will kind of last allegedly around a half hour-ish. And it kind of makes sense to me. Like, okay, fear, like you have the scare, and then you kind of like, it makes me think of like Scooby-Doo. Like you get scared, you're running from the monster, and then when you're kind of safe from the monster, the fear kind of goes away and you're like, okay, I'm good. You aren't ruminating in how scared you were, you know? Compassion, you feel it in the moment and maybe you think a little bit about it afterwards, but then it kind of goes away. These things you don't quite ruminate on. And then there are the things that are much longer lasting, like anxiety, hope, desperation, joy, hatred, and the winner of this study, which is by no surprise, was sadness. Apparently sadness can last up to 5 days. And I was like, wait, that's so crazy. And then it makes you think, okay, well, depression, like that actually makes a ton of sense, but isn't that interesting how, you know, you can feel these things for such different amounts of time? And what was really interesting too, the point that this writer was making, was a lot of the time there's kind of like two ends of the spectrum for like emotions that are related, if that makes sense. And I was like, ooh, cool. So basically fear is brief, but anxiety is lasting, and shame goes quickly, whereas guilt stays with us. You know, like it's like these kind of similar feelings, but like there's the long version and the short version. And when you think about like what is the difference between shame and guilt, to me it is that rumination. It's that rethinking about what you felt ashamed of, right? Like, I don't know, this is so interesting to me. And to just kind of finish out what I read from this article that I really liked and like took away from before I kind of get into this a little bit more, was they had a point talking about like one of Brene Brown's books, and I kind of thought it was cute, and it just like, I don't know, got me thinking a little bit as well, was that this is an important reminder that we all have a responsibility to our fellow humans, whether it's a colleague, a teacher, a family, a friend, to understand what we are putting them through when we invoke an emotion in them. And I was like, you know, I've actually like putting it in those certain words, I had never thought about it that way, that like when you do something, like you could be invoking an emotion that somebody feels for the next hour, for the next 2 days, for the next 5 days. Like that's actually super interesting. Like I think we think about maybe how people will react to things, but I feel like not always do we think about how you're going to make them feel in the longer term. Maybe that's just me, but I was like, oh, putting that kind of together, I was like, that's really interesting to like put it that way. And like, I guess is like a interesting lesson in self-awareness and kind of stuff like that, and how you present your thoughts and feelings to people, and I don't know, empathy, I guess, a little bit. And lastly, I loved this, but they're talking about how Buddhists teach this idea that the mind and like the self is like the sky and emotions are clouds passing through, and not to attach yourself to a cloud. And I was like, oh, isn't that beautiful? And I wonder, I've talked a little bit recently about meditation. I'm like, that's an interesting way to like step back and observe and maybe self-regulate, like to actually visualize that kind of thing and detach yourself from I am sad, I am guilty, I am all these things, but more so that I feel this, and that's not what you are exactly. You are the sky, and that's just what's in the sky right now, but it's going to pass eventually. But anyway, back to the rumination thing. They use the words rumination and re-trigger, and I was like, wait a minute, this just makes so much more sense to me, because off the bat, when you hear emotions last 90 seconds and you choose from there, you can kind of feel a little bit like attacked. You're like, okay, like I'm not choosing to feel sad. I'm not choosing to feel grief. Like, believe me, I am not choosing that. And I'm sure a lot of the time when we hear those kind of quotes about like, you're like, you choose how you feel, like it's like, ow, okay, like the fuck. And what I thought was really interesting was people, I don't know, the people who say these things or whatever, the quotes, the science, there is a point there, and I don't think it's that you're choosing to feel that way, but I think that knowing these sort of things and knowing that the way that our brains work, it's this rumination and this re-triggering that keeps us feeling a certain way, but it's more so that you have the agency and that you have the ability to choose to actively try and not re-trigger yourself. I'm going to stick with re-trigger because I think that like makes a little bit more sense in my brain, and probably yours too. Basically, like when something happens, like you feel guilty for saying something that you said when you were mad or something like that, right? You feel your shame in the moment maybe, and then the guilt is what lasts, and you can't change what your subconscious mind keeps re-triggering for you. You can't change that it keeps overthinking the situation, right? Like that's going to come inevitably. and you're not choosing to think about that. And especially with external triggers, especially when it comes to like grief and other things like that, when something external triggers you, or you see something or you hear something or you talk to somebody, like you getting re-triggered is not, you don't choose that. And like I said in the beginning, I think sometimes that's why positive emotions feel like they're fleeting all the time, is because you feel it and then you just don't choose to re-think about it and like ruminate and sit in it, because there's nothing to overthink about a really good moment. You can like think it and kind of be at peace with it. And I wonder if too that's another mindset around more negative emotions, is think it and sitting with it and and being okay with it. But anyway, like I said, you don't choose to re-trigger yourself, but I think that once we understand that the reason things last so long is the re-triggering, is the overthinking and the rerunning into things and whatever, is that you do have the choice to actively try and not be re-triggered. And that does not happen instantly. I think that was a big thing I learned from reading all of this and hearing all this, was you can't just say, okay, now I'm going to choose to stop feeling this way, or I'm going to choose to not think this, or choose to not trigger this. Hi guys, Edit and Caitlin here. I love a metaphor, and something I just thought of while I was editing was when it comes to choice and this kind of, debacle of like, you don't really have choice when your subconscious re-triggers yourself, or when outside things re-trigger you. I almost think about it like you can't instantly fix these things. You can't just choose to then stop being triggered. I think it's more of like, imagine you're in a hole and these re-triggers are dirt being thrown on top of the hole, and you actively making a choice, whatever your coping strategy may be, is you taking out the shovel and starting to dig your way out. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden you're going to snap your finger and the dirt isn't there. It just means that you have the choice and you have a shovel nearby when you're ready to use it. I think similar with like why therapy over just learning things off of TikTok or whatever can actually be a little bit better at times, is because a lot of the times therapists come with not only their coping mechanisms but the science behind them, like the ice cube in the hand for when you're anxious, deep breaths, mental games, getting exercise, socializing. I think a lot of the time therapists will come and tell you, and this is why that's good. And I think understanding the why behind why our brains do certain things is so helpful. And I think that when thinking about emotions, especially not positive ones, it's, I think, really helpful to know that a very big reason why you feel a certain way is because you just keep being re-triggered. And where that choice comes in is, doing the things to help either trigger yourself less or run into less triggers. And triggers can look like anything depending on the situation, right? Like maybe it means having space from a certain person. Maybe it means silencing something on social media, whether that means pouring into something else. That was something I also learned today, was if you are feeling a certain emotion, if something kind of keeps following you around, pouring into something and output. As I always say, actually, point on output right now. Not gonna lie to you guys, I had a cry today, but it helped so much because I think what it finally did was, what was happening is still the same in a way, but it doesn't feel like I'm covered in it anymore. It almost feels like I got it off and now it's just a tangible sort of fact sort of thing, right? And that is so much easier to attack than like this emotional paint that you're covered in, And to me, I think that's what a good cry can help with, and what a really good journal session can help with, what a good therapy session can help with, or even what a good walk can help with. Like, I don't like walk and like think about stuff and get it all out, And the other thing about output was I really got into this one project thing I was working on today, and that felt really good because I was just in my own little world and focusing on something else and pouring out, And another note on outputting as well, especially in moments of more negativity, if you will, outputting love is like one of the best things that you can do for like any sort of negative emotion, I feel like. So I made a point today to like have a little conversation with my barista, smile at people. Like sometimes I think like a lack of love is what is at the root at a lot of negative emotions in a way, maybe. And I think that just outputting love in the first place puts love back into the stratosphere, and that just like overall helps, at least there's love somewhere, even if it is still just coming from you. Even if you're not receiving it, love exists, and that I think helps a lot. Overall, this is a little bit shorter, guys, because it is just one solidified concrete lesson I learned today. But if this inspires you to do anything, number one, some sort of output, if you are feeling a certain type of way, give it a cry. This is my moment to tell you, because I don't know about you guys, but I always feel them coming. I knew for like the past couple days, I was like, I feel something good bubbling up. I was kind of excited about it, and it felt great. So if it inspires you to have your cry, book your therapy session, have a journaling moment, or even just overall telling yourself that it's okay and to feel how you're feeling, and that your subconscious is not necessarily your choice, but you do make the choice to eventually step out and look at your subconscious, look at all these triggers and say, okay, what can I do to actively help myself be less triggered or eliminate more triggers, or, things like that. And it's not at all an instantaneous fix at all. But I think by just knowing that these things are just clouds passing by, and that you do have choice, and it's not choice to shoot down clouds from the sky, but it's to maybe stay inside until it's sunny again, if that makes sense. Like, there are ways you do have choice, and I hope that resonates in a good way and not a way of feeling helpless, that like, well, the choice isn't working, like, you have power, you have choice, but these things are also inevitable. Hi guys, Ed and Caitlin here. One more thing I forgot to mention too, on the whole note of re-triggering and rumination. I think sometimes when there are things heavy on your mind, you also have to be able to allow yourself to be okay with the idea that some of these things need to be further thought about and further dissected, because sometimes that's the only way you actually figure out how you feel about things. And I think just fully villainizing rumination and re-triggering isn't exactly productive, because sometimes you actually need to give yourself time and space to think about things to actually help the emotion pass. And I think that overall, just understanding them a little bit better, I hope that this resonated with you. It really did with me, to like just think that, okay, like, that is why I keep feeling this way, or why I keep thinking this. It's the re-triggering of an emotion is why it stays with you. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I like to talk about this. I love when I learn like a life lesson on the day of the pod. It's like super, super fun and cute, because then I just feel like I'm really coming to you guys with like, okay, like, this is like the whole point of Floating Rock, is to live and learn, and then like to share with you guys, and also to share without this sort of rain cloud or harshness that I feel like other kind of podcasts or people can come across with when they are going through certain things. Like, I like to have a smile on my face even when I'm talking about re-triggering, because yes, they can't be serious things, but at the same time, like, you learn lessons and everything does eventually pass. And I'm glad that I'm kind of seeing the horizon of the sun, and that's why I'm here. I intentionally also today, I don't know if this resonates with you at all. As we know, we love routine here on the pod. I think it's a great thing, and consistency and discipline, that's all perfect and awesome. However, today I was not feeling the pod in the morning, whereas normally I do it in the morning, and I decided, okay, I'm going to turn my day around, do what I normally do later in the day earlier, and then record the pod later. And that helped me a lot too, because I didn't force myself to do this when it didn't feel right and natural. And yeah, sometimes breaking routine can really, really help you when it comes to emotions and a lot of things in general in life. Like another podcast idea. I love it. But anyway, thank you so much for listening, guys. I hope that this resonated in some sort of way, and on a more positive note too, when it comes to like positive feelings fleeting. Like, also know that I guess you can ruminate in positivity, maybe. I don't know. I just throwing that out there, that like maybe there is a way also to feel these positive things for a little bit longer, is to like keep thinking about them. I don't know. I just made that up. Don't quote me on that at all. But yeah, I hope this resonated. Follow the pod at flowing.rock.podcast. Subscribe on YouTube. Rate the pod on Spotify. I'll love you forever. And yeah, peace and love and peace. And I will see you guys next week. Okay, bye-bye.